Welcome to the Silver Creek Insights podcast. I'm your host, Felicia Wiley. Today, I'm joined by Barr Moses, co founder and CEO of Monte Carlo, the company behind the industry's first end to end data and AI observability platform. From serving as a commander in the Israeli Air Force to studying math and computer science at Stanford, and later leading customer success at Gainsight, Barr's journey is anything but ordinary. Under her leadership, Monte Carlo has raised over $230 million and is trusted by companies like Fox, Roche, and JetBlue to keep their data reliable. I hope I pronounced Roche correctly. She's also a fierce advocate for diversity in tech, pushing for more inclusive, equitable teams. Bar, welcome to the show. What can you tell us about yourself?
Thank you so much for having me and for the kind introduction. Yeah, I think you nailed it. I mean, don't have that much to add. Yeah, I'm the CEO and co-founder of Monte Carlo, and I'll tell you a little bit about what Monte Carlo does, and with a little bit more color, if that's helpful. As you mentioned, we're creating and leading a category called the data and AI observability, and I think this is a really sort of important moment in history where a couple things are happening. First of all, data has become really important in the last 5 to 10 years. With the advent of AI, it's sort of pushing mankind, if you will, or humankind, in probably referred to as sort of the industrial revolution, right? In a sense. And so, why we started the company was because we always found it peculiar that organizations have the way that they treat their software, their product applications, their websites, their infrastructure with a lot of diligence and have a lot of solutions to make sure that those are reliable and trusted. But very little exists for data and AI products. And so there's a lot of data analysts, machine learning engineers, AI engineers, data engineers, a lot of people building with data and AI, but very little is done to actually make sure that the data and AI products that they deliver are actually trusted and reliable. And so we started the company because, first of all, we thought data and AI was going to be the hottest space and the most interesting space to be in. I'm excited that that's proving to be true. The second sort of hypothesis that we had when we started the company was that data and AI products will mean nothing if we can't actually trust them, if we can't reliable, if we can't rely on that. And so we're really excited to help bring this next revolution. And yeah, we're really fortunate to work with over 500 enterprises at this point, including the world's largest pharma, media, retail companies, Fortune 500, and many others.
It's amazing. And I'm so happy that you mentioned reliable data. So, with the rise of generative AI and LLMs, how has the definition of reliable data changed?
Great question. So, first of all, let's talk about how data changed, because I think
Yeah.
that will give us a little bit of a clue for what reliable data means. So, you know, let's go like 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago. Time flies. So 15 years ago, people used data in a very limited way. They used Excel, still kind of use Excel, had like one SAP or Oracle database, and basically, maybe used the data to report to the street as a company, use data to report to the street on their revenue and number of customers, et cetera, and forecast. And in that world, you had very little data, very few people working with data, and a lot of time to make sure that the data is accurate. Fast forward to a couple of years ago, the data state has changed tremendously, right? So if you think about the data state, people are aggregating a lot of data in a data lake house, in a data warehouse. They, transforming the data with orchestration solutions. They have BI to use
Mhm.
to report on the data. They have machine learning applications. They have AI applications. The data state has changed. Now, couple on top of that, the data estate has become the data and AI estate. And so people are building not only BI solutions, machine learning applications, they're also building agents. They're
Oh,
building RAG pipelines and they're building chatbots. And so the whole sort of sphere of kind of like what data and AI teams are responsible for has changed dramatically from the days of, oh, we have like one Oracle instance and like we report on the numbers once a quarter, right? Like
yeah.
dramatically changed. The use cases have changed and, people working with data has changed tremendously. However, the way in which we manage the reliability of the data and AI estate hasn't changed at all,
Mhm.
mind-blowingly. I think 10, 15 years ago, when you would ask people like, how do you know that the data that you're sharing is accurate? People would be like, oh, I just have 5 people look at the data and make sure that it's accurate. And you can't do that in today's data and AI state. You can no longer sort of rely on, it's very hard to rely on human beings to check every single
Yeah.
data or model output, if you will. And so, I think as a result of that, how we need to think about the reliability of the data has changed dramatically. And, we've done a lot of work meeting with data and AI leaders and mapping out what we think is the best way to do that and what
Mhm.
we think actually allows organizations to make sure that what they're building is trusted and reliable.
Which is absolutely amazing. I completely agree where it's like you need that data quality and you need that data observability tools to ensure that what you're looking at is going to solve the problems that you want or make sure it's just like healthy and in check. So, what are some of the biggest blind spots that you would say companies still have when it comes to trusting the output of their AI systems?
Good question. So I'd say the first blind spot is that, you have to treat this with the highest diligence. And let me explain why. Just to kind of like give a couple of examples. Maybe 5 years ago, a company named Unity, which is a gaming company, they had one issue with their ad data and it cost them, I think it was $100 million. Their stock basically
Yeah,
dropped 37%. That was many years ago. That was 5 years ago. Fast forward to today, fun story. A user convinced a chatbot to sell them a Chevy Tahoe car for $1,
crazy.
right? But yeah, it's possible. And so, in today's world, it's a lot easier to lose revenue, lose customer trust, hurt your brand if you're putting out unreliable products.
Mhm.
In the regulatory industry, this becomes, doubly important. As an example, Citibank had a $300 million fine a couple years ago because of bad data quality practices. And that was just, something that got published. Company in the regulatory industry is sort of exposed to some degree to those situations. And because of that, companies want companies on the one hand want and need to experiment with AI, but also need to recognize that the stakes are higher than ever,
Mhm.
to making sure that your what you're sharing with the world is reliable. Now, I will say I don't think there's one like tool to like solve it all. I wish we could like magic wand and everything's fine. I think the most important thing that people need to realize is there's no magic solution.
Mhm.
But there is an operational process that you can adopt. Let me put this a different way. Systems will break and your
Yeah.
system will be vulnerable. Just like, when you are monitoring your website or infrastructure, it's not 100%, right? And people will always remember the like 2% of the time when it's broken.
Mhm.
But, the other 98% of the time, what's important is that you have a system around it and you have a framework around how to think about it and that you are proactively working on it and improving it over time. Now,
Mhm.
the framework that we've developed that we think is most helpful is basically the ability to trace. We believe, based on all of our experience working with thousands of organizations, that any issue that contributes to some unreliable data or product can be traced back to four key root causes:
Wow.
data, systems, code, and model. I'll explain each. So if you sort of envision your data in AI state, going kind of from the left hand side, you're ingesting data, third party or first party data. It's then flowing through the systems. Maybe,
Mhm.
there's a data lake, data warehouse, maybe a vector database, there's orchestration, maybe there's like DBT or Airflow, LangChain, LangGraph. Um, downstream, maybe you have a BI solution mentioned, like maybe your website is downstream, maybe there's an internal chat bot, maybe there's some data sharing. Basically, sort of, really sort of think about your entire estate. The four key reasons for what something could fail. The first is initially or the data that you're adjusting is wrong or late or corrupt. Something's causing that. So bad data. That's the first thing.
Yeah.
The second is a system failure. All systems fail. So like a job could fail. The
Yeah.
third is a code change. So someone might make a change in the code that the agent is running on, or a code that does transformation of the data. Any change in that code could cause unintended consequences. And then the fourth reason for why product might be unreliable is even if the data is perfect and the context is perfect and the prompt is perfect, a model might still produce output that's not fit for purpose. What do I mean by
Mhm.
that? One of the most viral examples that I think this was like maybe a year ago. This is public. It's on Google, so I feel comfortable sharing. Someone Googled. You might remember this. What should I do when cheese is slipping off my pizza? And Google responded, "Oh, you should use organic super glue. Easy to put the cheese back on the pizza."
I remember that.
Now we laugh at that, right? But the model did its thing. There was a Reddit thread where someone said that jokingly. And, the model had the right data, the right prompt, and produced an output. But for the reader, the output was not fit. Like
Mm,
clearly, for you to unite, that makes sense. But if we don't have, something in place to observe that model output and ensure that that is fit for purpose, and that trust, that sort of implicit contract between the consumer that's actually, on the receiving end is broken. And
yeah.
so I think full observability needs to make sure that you are covering data, systems, code, and model output, all of which might be unreliable and might contribute to an unreliable data and AI product.
So great answer. And thank you so much for breaking it down into those 4 steps and that Monte Carlo uses to like help catch these failures because these failures are expensive and they're also embarrassing. And sometimes they're both. So having those in place is definitely important for a lot of companies. Well, I would say all companies, actually. All companies should have a system in place in order to catch this. So you have scaled Monte Carlo across some of the most data-driven companies in the world. What cultural shifts have you noticed when teams commit to observability?
Great question. And I love that you frame it as a cultural shift because, as I mentioned before, I don't think you sort of, wave a magic wand and you're
Yeah,
kind of done, right? It requires understanding that there's a system to be observed here,
Mhm.
that there's a framework to be applied, that there's an operational maturity that needs to be achieved, and also that there's a cultural change. And so, I was just meeting with a Fortune 500 company yesterday, and, sort of the team was reporting back to the chief data officer and the CTO on how they've improved on data and AI reliability. And they basically presented this dashboard, which I loved. And the dashboard showed a couple of things. First of all, it showed an overall kind of like data quality score by data and AI product. So you
Oh.
basically had a list of like all the products, for your financial team, for your marketing team, the product team is using, and basically a score that shows like, how trusted and reliable is this over time. That was
Mhm.
sort of like a high level overview. And then a double click into that was, how many incidents have we had by severity? So, for example, you can see that in the last month, they had only one high severity issue, but plenty of Sev 2 issues. The third thing that you could see is the time to detection. So, how quickly is a team able to identify that issues are reported or are happening? And the third thing was how quickly is the team able to resolve these incidents? So, basically, it was time to resolution. And you could really sort of see how the team measured themselves over time. Are we getting better at detecting issues, troubleshooting issues, and resolving them? And is the number of incidents per data product over time going up or going down? And go for it.
No, so I this is really interesting because as you were speaking, it reminded me of an old job that I used to have. So when you say team, I'm guessing what you're saying with like Monte Carlo is that you guys will work with individual teams, whether it's like the AI team or the business intelligence team. So not necessarily like the company as a whole, right?
So it's a good question. We oftentimes work with, it's a combination. So the thing about data and AI products is that so many people contribute to creating them. And so actually one of the core reasons or what we do as a company is help bridge between the engineering teams and the
Yeah.
business teams that are
Okay.
impacted by that. That was maybe where you were going with it. But I would say upstream, there's engineering teams, data engineering and AI engineering. And then downstream, there's like analysts,
Mhm.
marketing people, financial people, salespeople, customers. We help bridge that because we help
Okay.
bring, at Monte Carlo, we help bring both of them to a common language
Okay.
where someone can set an SLA and say, this particular data set is being, fed into this agent that's shared directly with our customers. It needs to
Mm.
be pristine. And that agent can hallucinate and the response needs to be for purpose and the model needs to perform really well and set up criteria and then the business users could be awesome, that's great, and then maybe it's okay, there's this other data set that we really don't care about, no one's using it, it's totally fine. So we help communicate between that because we find that oftentimes there's this like perfect storm of everything is breaking and there's so many teams involved and no one detects the issues and it takes years until you identify these unless they make their way to Twitter or to X, and then, you're all here. It goes out faster than you would hope.
Okay, no, that makes perfect sense. So because when I'm thinking of all like the jobs that I work with or the companies that I work with, it's so siloed. Like we have the business intelligence team, their data gets ingested from the partners, then it sits on, there's Postgres, and then it goes to Tableau. And then we have like the actual like geospatial data teams where they're now ingesting like the geospatial data, and then that goes for a different
Yeah.
product. So in the case of Monte Carlo, you guys will come in and let's say that before, like let's say this like the BI team, it now incorporates an AI agent that sits on top of like, I guess would be either before Tableau, because that's where the business leaders will see it. So from like Postgres, there'll be like now like this AI observability tool right after the AI agent is incorporated that'll validate the data that then gets sent to Tableau. Is that the correct
So
workflow?
we would actually sit across that. So,
Across that, okay,
yeah. So you mentioned Postgres. I don't know if you all have like, Redshift, Snowflake, Databricks.
it would be Redshift for them.
Perfect. And would they have like Oracle and SAP as well? Maybe Server SQL, any transactional databases?
No, that
Okay,
I know of.
awesome. So like Postgres, Redshift. What about orchestration?
Orchestration, that would be through like, is it Airbyte or Airflow? One of those.
Airflow, I'm
Airflow.
guessing.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Great. So we would start with Redshift,
okay.
then Postgres and Airflow. We would integrate with Airflow and the BI, and the agent, wherever that is. And maybe you have some sort of notification strategy. Maybe you have like alerts through PagerDuty or Slack. So basically, the most value is seen from an observability solution when you have visibility into each of these points, because things can break anywhere along the way. Like the
Yeah,
data, in Postgres might be wrong. A DBT Airflow job, sorry, might fail. The BI dashboard just might not have been refreshed. The agent might have might have hallucination. There might be an issue at every single system that you just
yeah.
mentioned. And so in order to really understand holistically what broke and why, it's critical to have coverage across. This is such a good example.
That is so thank you so much for breaking it down into so this was like a real world example, which is how like my brain processes things. So thank you
Please,
so much
yeah.
for
Tell me
breaking it
more.
down.
Tell me more about the example. What did you have in mind?
So my example was I was just trying to understand exactly where Monte Carlo would like their tools would fit in order for like the business leaders to see. So I was just trying to like place exactly where, but as you mentioned, this is from one end to the next. So it's across all
Yeah.
different sectors where the data is fed into or
Yeah.
manipulated or transformed. So that is thank you so much for helping me with that. And
Yeah.
no wonder why you have raised like whatever 230 million revenue for this because this is actually an incredible tool that I'm so shocked that like, the company that I used to work for, this was, like, years ago that was that example for. This was one of the largest location data companies in the world. And the fact that there was no data observability tool for, like, location data, like the location data that is fed into, like, Uber and, like, Google Maps, and, like, that is crazy to me. So, what do you think now is something about scaling a data infrastructure company that you think gets overlooked?
Great question. Well, first of all, I think your example is perfect because that's exactly the thing. We're all working in a world where the data that we work on is really critical.
Mhm.
Whether it's in the financial space, it's credit card data. Do we want our credit card data to be out no, right? Whether it's geospatial data, right? That's like feeds
Mhm.
Uber, like that matters. Whether it's an airline, we work with lots of airlines.
Yeah.
You want to know like what time does the flight arrive? Where's your luggage? Right? Like those pieces of information are critical. And
Mhm.
so really in each of those instances, when teams are flying blind, isn't it funny, not funny, ironic, isn't it ironic that engineering solutions and software engineering products are so heavily observed and monitored, and at every single second whether they're up.
Yeah.
And with data and AI products, like you're like, yeah, how are we providing all of this? And we have no idea, right?
Yeah.
Totally flying
True.
blind. So yes, we thought it was crazy too, which is why we started the company. So in terms of scale, I mean, obviously there's a couple of things to unpack here. First of all, there's the ability to just scale from a product and technology perspective. And so we work with the largest airlines in the world, the largest banks, the largest media companies, really sort of any industry, the largest tech companies. We work with the largest AWS, Snowflake, Databricks, Azure, GCP.
Great.
customers in the world. And so, the first thing that we've had to do as a company is being able to scale our product to support that.
Yeah.
The second thing that we've had to do is help guide organizations through exactly what you asked, like the cultural shift and the operational muscle. And so, for that, honestly, we partner with our customers to do that. And so, um, you know, it's not uncommon, or I would say it's necessary for customers to make a choice that they want to change this, that they want to build a culture of diligence on your data and AI products. And that is sort of like table stakes, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. And I would actually argue that that is the harder part to scale in a sense, because you need to,
Wow.
to, to scale a change in culture. And so we are fortunate to work with, I think the best data and AI teams in the world, where people have put a stake in the ground and say, we are going to make this better. I will not tolerate I will not anymore.
Yeah.
We need this. If we want to live in a world where we are delivering data and AI products to make our customers' experience stronger, it needs to be built on a foundation of trust and reliability.
Wow. And what's truly amazing is I think when you're working with these AI tools, first you're working with teams who are now like starting to bring in these various AI tools, where it's like the agentic AI, the agent tools, like whatever you want to call it. Like they're now incorporating that. So of course their mind is already open to fresh ideas and trying to further their own like business agenda. But you're also capturing them on this like mind expansion of like, okay, well, if you're going to do this, you need to also have this. So it's like, to me, I'm sensing that you probably have so much synergy and like good energy with the people that you work for, because no, you're not going to be brought onto a team who's like not open to improvements. So that's really exciting to hear, because I love that energy. That just makes me feel all pumped and ready to go too.
Yeah.
And you're really uniquely positioned to spot patterns across all of these industries that you work for. Because I think you mentioned pharma, you mentioned airlines, you mentioned multimedia companies,
Hmm.
and one other
Really
category that
across all industries,
literally across
financial,
all
yeah,
industries.
manufacturing, whatever you like it. Yeah.
So where do you now see the data and AI strategy heading in the next 2 to 3 years?
Yeah, great questions. Um, First of all, I agree with you. I think in today, people like to say the only thing that's constant is change. And I
Mhm.
think the leaders that are embracing change are those that are going to be at the forefront. And what we do is honestly, we help our customers navigate through this insane change
Oh,
and challenge that they have right now. There's a lot of pain out there because a lot of people are expected to deliver, AI solutions very quickly, and there's a lot of pressure on them. So by and large, you know, we hear from data and AI leaders, there's kind of like three big problems that they have today, or three big things that they're trying to do. The first is they're trying to make their teams more productive using AI in a similar way that engineers now use sort of Copilot or whatever it is in order to basically radically transform how software products are being built. In a similar way, data and AI leaders are looking for ways to transform their teams and make them accelerate their output, do more, basically.
yeah.
So that's one problem, or kind of one challenge that they have. The second challenge that they have is they've been building sort of on a foundation of data that needs to be AI ready, meaning they're now being
Mhm.
asked to serve data, maybe it's geospatial data, maybe it's financial data, but for enterprises building with generative AI, their moat is their proprietary data, and so they need to use their proprietary data in order to make their generative AI solutions
Mhm.
relevant to their customers. So it's not just a generic product that anyone can build off of like an OpenAI API or something. The only way to make it relevant for my audience is by using data that I have about this. But if that data is inaccurate, then the product that I'm delivering is totally wrong. And so the
Yeah.
second challenge is how do we get AI ready data? And then the third challenge is how do we actually deliver generative AI solutions that are well adopted? And in order for those solutions to be well adopted, they need to not only be relying on reliable data, but
Mhm.
the solutions themselves need to be reliant. And so, oh, you were going to ask something?
No, no, keep going, because it's just the wheels are turning.
Yeah. I'm very passionate about this. So at Monte Carlo, we really focus on helping our customers across these three problems.
Mhm.
And we help with all of them in various ways. Let me talk only about the first one because I know I don't know how much time you have, but
Yeah,
I'll give an example for the first bucket of how we help data and AI teams be more productive. We recently, or one of the things that we do, I mentioned as part of observability, is we connect to your data and AI estate, and then the first thing that you need to do is figure out like, what do you need to monitor? Like, what's important to you? For example, I need to make sure that this data set arrives at 5 a.m. Or I need to make sure that this particular field is between this and that values. And that requires a human to understand the data, to understand the semantic connection, the semantic meanings, and the connections between various objects and data. We've actually released an agent, and that's a monitoring agent. And what the monitoring agent does is basically mimics what a human would do. So basically, this agent profiles the data to understand what the data looks like, collects metadata to infer and uh, basically decrypt the semantic connection between columns, and samples the data in order to kind of gut check it. And based on that, makes recommendations for what to monitor. And so
Wow.
instead of teams spending a lot of time trying to figure out like, what should I monitor? What should it look like? This basically accelerates data stewards in a significant way. Now, this is the simple agent that we've released. We're working on a second agent that I'm even more excited about. I'll just tell you about this one.
Yeah, let's hear it.
This second agent that we're working on, I'm just so excited about this because it's such a cool application of LLMs. Basically, the way that people troubleshoot incidents today, if there's an incident, you basically start, I mean, you must know this. Let's say something is wrong. You start working through like, oh, here are all the hypotheses that I have from my could go wrong. Okay, maybe the data was wrong. Maybe the code, maybe some engineer pushed a change somewhere. Maybe something didn't fresh. You come up with a list of hypothesis. And then you start like investigating to figure out like, was it this one? Was it that? What was it? And that can take weeks, years, months, sometimes. What we are building, this troubleshooting agent, is basically has an LLM that basically comes up, a model that comes up with like the list of hypotheses and then spawns off additional agents to investigate each of these hypotheses in parallel.
Oh,
And
wow.
then the magical thing is that you can run this investigation su- subsequently upstream on every asset all the way to figure out the root cause. And so you can actually have over 100 agents running in parallel in under 2 minutes. And that is a significant game changer for teams because now we can say there's an issue. And in a very short amount of time, we can tell you, and here's the root cause. Here's why. It's because this change and that thing happened. And so it's just saving enormous amounts of time for teams, making them a lot more productive with what I think is a really cool application of models because it's really like a beginning of like, what we do as human beings, if that makes sense.
So that is absolutely incredible. Thank you so much for explaining that because it is a game changer. The amount of times that in another role as a data engineer, like, we had our processes for, like, checking, like, what was wrong. We'd go to Airflow, look at the logs, and, like, work our way backward, go back to the code, okay, who who released, like, the last, like, get, like, PR, like,
Pull
who
up
did
request.
that,
Yeah.
like, what's going on, X, and you just, like, follow, like, the breadcrumbs, but the system was so broken. The data was never, like, accurate, it wasn't reliable. I did not like working for this job, but it was just like the data was just like, one, never accurate. No one trusted the data. You couldn't figure out like what was going on, only because like so historically, like a consultant had built like the entire like backend of it, and then
Hmm.
they kind of sort of like left, and we couldn't actually have any access to like what they built. So like
Hmm.
everything that was like built on top was kind of just like a patch because we could never get to the root problem because the root problem was like elsewhere. So
Hmm.
there were so many issues, but like that entire system was so fragile. Honestly, Monte Carlo might have, like, a fun time with them, 'cause it was just, like, so fragile, so it's just, like, just what you're talking about with, like, being able to run hundreds of agents in under 2 minutes to try to figure out where the issue stemmed from. You know how much hours that would've saved me as a data engineer? Like, so
Yeah.
much, and gosh, so I know the impact that you guys can make just based on what you're telling me, and, like, yes, it's needed. Gosh, I wish you guys had worked with that other company. So so this product, it serves both, as you mentioned, data engineers, but also the company as a whole with like the C-suite executives. How do you try to find like that balance and simplicity like versus depth, if that makes sense?
In a product, you mean?
In like talking to these different people and trying to like explain to
Mm.
them like what's going on, how do you how do you break that down for them?
It's a great question and something that honestly, like we've wrestled with as a company. To give you a little bit of background, historically, we really sold to companies, when we started the company, we sold to companies that were on the smaller end, like people, employees, something like that. In in those size organizations, there's typically, like a head of data engineering or data engineering lead. And we would typically focus mostly on that persona. That's kind of like where
Mm,
Monte Carlo
okay.
started. And over time, as the problem has evolved for our customers, as our customers have evolved, we basically understood that the people contributing to this problem and that are involved in the problem of shipping data, reliable data and AI products includes data engineers, but also data analysts, but also data stewards, data governance, AI engineers, chief data officers. And I think the mistake is to assume that the same messaging and the same
Mhm,
product features applies to everyone because it doesn't. Each of these people have different skill sets, they have different problems, they have different workflows, and therefore we should meet them where they are, not try to
mhm.
force them to meet us where we are. And so over time, we've really honed in into each of those personas and really understood like, what do they struggle with? What's their day to day like? What happens when there's an issue? Are they on the hook? Or are they blaming someone else? Who are they blaming? Why are they blaming? Right? Because it's all a blame game. It's not
It's
like,
all the blame game.
yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And some of these personas understand why it's important that the data is reliable, and some don't. They're like, I just ship the data, I'm good. And there's all these like various dynamics between the different personas. And so we spent a significant amount of time as a company to truly understand. I mean, my background, I used to be a data analyst once upon a time. And so I understand that persona as an example. I spent a lot of my time with like VPs of data, chief data officers, et cetera. Our product caters to multiple personas, both
Mhm.
business oriented and technical oriented, because we know that it's a team sport.
Yeah.
And so I think the mistake would be to assume that you could, sort of water it down to one clear message that's resonant to everyone. I don't think that's the case. I think if you want to make a data engineer or an AI engineer really happy, we have to truly understand what they care about and we have to
Yeah.
build for them. And so that's what we do.
So, I love how you talked about, like, the blame game because it's we all live through it where you're on a different there's different, you have the data analysts, the data engineers. The data engineers are just ingesting the data, trying to make sure that it's all transformed and looks good. The data analysts, then they have the marketers who are like, "This doesn't look right," and then the data analysts were like, "Well, we're using their data," and it's all just like them like, "You guys, this is so annoying. Like, stop
Yeah.
it."
You
So
get it.
like, I
Yeah.
understand, I've lived it, like, it's exhausting, and, like, I could only imagine, like, the struggles where when we also have to deal with, like, office politics, so, like, one, who's getting more headcount, what's the budget for what, then we have the data engineers saying in their team, "We need more resources because we need another person because we're overwhelmed because 'cause we're the last person to be involved in any of your decisions that you make, and you guys make us do so much," and then everyone's fighting for that budget, and then finally Monte Carlo's here saying, "I can save the day," and now they're all fighting as we need this, and it's just internal company politics just drives me crazy, but
Yeah.
oh my goodness, so
I think
I
you're not the only one.
it's for some odd reason, I don't understand why it's so rampant. I don't, but that's a conversation for another time. Today we're
I'm
gonna
not the
stick
expert. I'm not the
yeah,
expert on that.
we're gonna stick on about AI and data observability. That's what we're gonna talk about. So, for those data leaders who are dealing with those politics or trying to get their hands up to say, we need this tool, what advice would you give them to get executive buy-in for investing in data observability?
Great question. So one of the things that we did was actually ask our customers this question. We're like,
Mhm.
hey, customers in, said industry, what has helped you? Like, what is sort of the value or the ROI that you have seen since you invested in observability? And the numbers are pretty staggering. I think the return on investment is something like 350%. There's
Right.
90% improvement in incident resolution, 80% of time saving for data engineering team. I think it's like less than 6 months payback period. There's some pretty strong numbers. Again, based on customers. I'm very skeptical of,
Um,
sort of any kind of, you know, things that could be well, first of all, I'm skeptical of data coming from the background. I know that you can use data in whatever way you want. Um, I think it's when it comes from customers, it's very powerful.
okay.
And when our customers tell us, we can't envision doing our work. Like I can't envision going up to work without Monte Carlo. Or
Right.
I can't envision doing my job without making sure that I have observability for it. I think that is very powerful. So I'm fortunate that we get to work with, again, some of the best data and AI teams. And if we can play a small part in helping them deliver reliable data and AI products, what that means is, healthcare, it means that we're making sure that the right medicine or the right, outcome or treatment is recommended to the right person. That's the stakes. Or for the airline industry, we're making sure that someone has their luggage and they're going to catch their next flight. And, in the financial space, we're helping organizations make sure that they're going to get the right
Right.
tax and benefits recommendations. And those things matter, right? So, in a sense, I feel like we help accelerate organizations' mission, whatever mission they're on, we help enable them and make sure that they actually deliver on what they're trying to do. And so, assuming it's a good mission, obviously we're very fortunate to support that.
No, what you build, the teams that you build, the organizations that you help, you are in the tech space, like, changing lives. You're making people's lives easier, you're making data more reliable, you're making helping brands, helping customers trust the brands that they use, and I think that's immensely valuable, so you're awesome in my book. So, I do wanna switch now from Monte Carlo to learn more a little bit about, like, your
Yeah.
personal journey. So, you've emphasized the importance of creating environments where everyone sees opportunities for growth. What strategies have you implemented at Monte Carlo to foster that inclusivity?
Great question. First of all, we always think like the best personal growth for you in a company comes from the company's growth. And so if you can join and help build a company that's making customers happy and delivering real value to
Yeah.
customers, we're very proud of that. We're not shelfware with any of our customers. We, do our best to align incentives so that our team members are recognized and appreciated and compensated when our customers see value and are
Mhm.
happy. And that is an important alignment at the company level and at the employee level. And so, the best kind of growth is really when the company's growing, when our customers are happy, there's value. Other than that, at Monte Carlo, I very much believe in sort of building the company around the people, not the other way around.
Yeah.
And so I think for people, growth means very different things. It could be, taking on new challenges, learning new skill sets, getting a promotion in title, more pay, more compensation. It means very different things for different people. And so what we do is try to encourage our people leader to have those conversations with their team members. What do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to do in the next phase of growth? What does that mean for you? What does growth mean for you? What's most important for you? We spelled out 6 to 7 different things that could be important for you. Which like stack rank those for me. Where do you feel most fulfilled? Where do you feel most impacted? What do you think are the areas that you can contribute to company growth? How do you think that aligns with your growth? How can we support you to get there? Right. And then obviously like the follow through and making sure that that actually happens. But I think employee growth is sometimes mistakenly put on the company, but it's actually best developed hand in hand with an employee, right?
Mhm.
Because it takes that buy-in. And so we very much believe in promoting internally. Many of our leaders grew up sort of in the business, so to speak. And honestly, like that's like one of the favorite parts of my job is, when someone it's like, yeah, Monte Carlo like made my career, like you know, gave me a shot when no one else did. I'm like, how grateful am I that I can be,
Yeah.
a very small part of your story.
That's so beautiful, and I love that you did emphasize, one, that human first perspective, and then you also talked about, like, just delivering value, and when you deliver value to people who work for you, the customers get that value back. So it's kind of like this never-ending cycle of just, like, being human, being gracious, being kind, and just letting it trickle because, like, when you do good things for those who are with you, like, that just makes the environment so much more fulfilling and valuable. So, honestly, I'm so happy that you're able to experience personally, like, seeing these teams prosper because I could only imagine how, like, that makes you feel. Reflecting on your journey, what personal growth moments stand out and how have they shaped your perspective as a leader?
That's a great question. I mean, I think the interesting thing about sort of the entrepreneurial road, if you will, something that I've learned is at the end of the day, it forces you to be your authentic self. There's really no other way. And what do I mean by that? Oftentimes people ask me, like, what advice do you have in general? And my answer is always like, I don't have any advice for you. My advice is like, listen to your customers, listen to your
Mhm.
gut, and figure it out. Like, there's no advice, right? No one has walked in your shoes. The other thing people will ask is like, how do you make a hard decision? Or what leads you to make difficult decisions? Or how do you operate in those scenarios? And I think what I've learned is that for any decision that you make, whatever you choose, like the decisions that get to me are often are oftentimes not straightforward or not obvious. And so it's sort of like you're choosing between options in which some people will be unhappy if you choose option A, and not different group of people will be unhappy if you choose option B. And so in a sense, like, you can't really make people happy. If that makes sense. And it can't be your what you're trying to solve for, basically.
Mhm.
And so really what that forces you is like to look inward and to say, what do I think? And have a lot of clarity, a lot of conviction, and a lot of courage to stand behind that. And, I think I'm very fortunate to have the opportunity to walk in this entrepreneurial journey and to grow in each of these areas, to have stronger clarity of mind, of thinking, to have stronger conviction in what I think is right and wrong. And that's not shaped necessarily by what other people think. And to have the courage to make bets, to make decisions,
Mhm.
to lead people. And so, you know, I think that has been a very meaningful part of my life on this path.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And it's true. You need to have conviction, trust your gut, and do what you have to do to make things happen. So, and you have to have that courage because imagine if you thought of this idea and then you're like, that's a good idea. And then you just went back to doing whatever you did. Like you actually took an idea and you ran with it and you created it. And not many people like take that idea that they have and create it. So that's
Yeah, it's
already
magical. It's
it's
addicting,
it's a
in fact.
for
Yeah.
sure.
There's an adrenaline rush from being able to build something. And then you see that that thing changed someone's life and it was impactful in them. And then you're like, how can I do more of that? And
Oh,
how
for
can I get more people to do that? There's something, it's the best thing on planet Earth.
no, I love the feeling. I've also built, like, the entire back end of, like, my startup, so, like, I get that feeling. It's
That's
awesome.
amazing.
It's like my own, like, private, like, project, not really, it's awesome,
Yeah,
but it's still, like, it's fun to do because you get to test your own capabilities.
I love that. Exactly. It's the ultimate bet on yourself.
It's the ultimate bet on yourself. So, we're coming up on time. Are you free for a bonus lightning round?
Sure, let's do it.
Okay. What is one mistake companies make when scaling AI?
I don't know if this is a mistake. It's sort of kind of a little bit the reality today, but I think people right now are in a mode of sort of experimenting and kind of, let a thousand flowers bloom. And so it's not oftentimes use case or business case driven. And so
Mm,
oftentimes people find themselves with a lot of cool technology and a lot of cool things, but not a lot of so what.
yeah,
It might be, a necessary part to kind of get our, minds around like what exactly this technology can do. And maybe there's sort of this intermediary part of the transformation where, that is okay and it's actually maybe even helpful. But I do think there's a lot of things around AI right now that are not tied at all to a so what. And I think that will have
I agree. What is one tool you swear by besides Monte Carlo?
a great question. I'm a big Slack user. I, work a lot with my team. I really like Claude as well.
I agree. Most underrated role on a data team?
You know, data and AI teams do so much. It's hard for me to choose
Yes.
one role that's underrated. I mean, I think, if I think about data analyst role, I've been in the data analyst, shoes. So it's maybe a little bit easier for me, more natural for me to kind of empathize with that. But honestly, like I think every single role on the team, like eats shit to a certain degree. Excuse my language, right? Like it's hard for me to choose one because it kind of really depends. I'm in a position where I see it all. It's kind of there's that Superman meme where it's like three Supermans all like pointing at each other and like blaming. That's what I feel like. So yeah, exactly. I've personally experienced the taking shit from a data analyst perspective, but I'm very well aware that every single persona feels the pain and contributes. So um it's uh it's a non-answer, but I stand behind it.
That is okay. All right. Last question. Tableau versus Looker.
Good question. I'm going to say neither. I think the
Oh,
future of BI is going to be different with AI. I'm really
ooh.
excited to see where. By the way, 3 months ago, I didn't think that was the case. The 3 months ago, I actually wasn't sure that we could do that. But with the model developments in the last few months, I am more and more convicted that BI, as we know it, will cease to exist in the future.
My goodness. Now we're running up on time, but I want to dive into that. Can you extrapolate that a little bit for
I
me?
thought this was a lightning round. No, I'm kidding.
I know you
I mean,
brought this up, and I had to ask.
look, I think it's very early days, right?
Mhm.
But I think if you're seeing sort of one, it's very early days. I'll caveat that. Two, the world is changing dramatically. It's very hard to plan out for more than like a month or 3 months at this point. But I will say there's something that's, I think, very intriguing about the idea that you can have a conversation about data
Yeah.
and that you can reason, right? Almost like have a conversation. And, I think with, when sort of when there's sort of an explanation that goes alongside that, like, when the model's like, here's why I did something, like, here's the answer and here's why, and then shares like the sources with you, and you can give feedback to that and say, actually, can you not use this source? It's unreliable, right? And like have that back and forth. I think that opens a whole new world of possibilities. And I think when people speak now about like, software engineers in the future will be managing a team of agents, one agent, building a feature, one agent, fixing
Mhm.
something, right? I think there's a similar world for data and AI teams. They're going to be managing a fleet of agents, like a monitoring agent, troubleshooting agent, a measurement agent, a retro agent, right? Like there's so many different things. And so I think in that world, um, how you get answers and how you learn from data is very different than the interface that I have today. I think it's a sort of really UI and interface revolution.
Wow. No, you just blew my mind. I'm gonna have to go tell my old BI manager to start looking for a new job.
By the way, just to be clear, I don't think it means
I
I don't want to imply, or what I would like to say is that similarly to how there's been a lot of developments in engineering and that
Yeah,
caused an increase in the number of engineers, I think it'll cause an increase in the number of data and AI professionals. So
yeah.
I think it's a great time to be in data and AI, just to be clear.
Interesting. No, I knew that you meant that. I just like making fun of my old teams and
That's okay. You can do
and
that.
texting them out of the blue random things. But I know
Yeah.
I said last question last time, but you just brought up another question for me, and I swear this is the last one, I
I
promise.
do have a hard stop, so I got to wrap.
Oh, okay. Wait, hard start now?
Let's do the last question and then let's
Okay.
go.
So you said master's in AI or master's in computer science?
Isn't that the same? It's the
No,
same.
it's the same.
It should be the same.
It should be the same.
Yeah, it's the
It's
same
not
thing. Should be the same.
it should, but it's not, but okay.
It's also master's in math. Similar.
Master's in math.
Yeah. And my
Oh,
dad is a physicist, so he would tell you it should be master's in physics. But,
okay, okay. Alright, well, Bar, this has been an enjoyable conversation. See, like, my hands are up. No more questions. I was having too much
This
fun, I'm
was
so
so fun.
sorry. And
No, don't apologize. This was amazing. I loved every minute.
thank you for your time, this was great. I learned so much, and honestly, you're an inspiration, so I'm so excited to watch the growth of Monte Carlo, and I will be watching, so just I'll see you on LinkedIn.
Thank you so much. And likewise, take care.